Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So we've been talking about prevailing wage laws pretty much all week since Kamala Harris was in Philadelphia at the Finishing Trades Institute, where they train the next generation of glazers, drywall hangers, painters, the people who are going to do the work that needs to be done thanks to the Biden infrastructure bill. We're going to need a lot of people to rebuild this country. And as I've been saying, got to take off the red hats and the blue hats and pick up a hard hat and get back to work. And that's why I think this so important. But here's the weird thing. Talking about prevailing wage and how it's going to benefit working people and how it's going to benefit communities, all that stuff must have hit a vein with the ABC folks. Not happy. Lots of angry emails in here to share some thoughts on maybe some of those and why prevailing wage laws are so important and how they're going to be helpful to working folks. That's why I've asked Tim Driscoll to talk with us. Tim is the president of the International Union of Bricklayers and Allied Craftworkers. Tim, thanks for taking time for us.
Rick, thanks for having me back. Glad to be here and glad to hear that you're hitting a nerve with the ABC. Something's going right over there.
No, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you had the vice president in Philadelphia saying, look, we're going to return prevailing wage laws back to the original intent, which was to use taxpayer money to build the things that we need, the things that we want, the roads, the bridges, the schools, all of that stuff, but also to benefit the workers and communities. Music to my ears, and I'm sure to yours as well.
Absolutely. Look, the fundamental principle of Davis-Bacon is to support the communities that the projects are going in. The Davis-Bacon Act, and little footnote here, right? It's a piece of legislation that comes out of the 1930s. It sponsors Representatives Davis and Bacon, Republican members of Congress in the 1930s, who sponsored and actually got this act through Congress. And what the recognition was is that federal dollars shouldn't be put on a project that would allow contractors to come in and undermine the area's standards by taking itinerant workers or workers who could be abused and work below what those locally established terms were. So really, it's just setting the table fair for all contractors to compete at the same level and not on the backs of workers.
Yeah, and look, I agree with you, but what do you say to the people? Because I got hit with this all week. Well, the prevailing wage is racist. I'm sure you've heard this. It was set up back in the 30s to keep black people from getting those jobs in New York and Philadelphia, and that's what it was really about. It wasn't really about helping workers.
No, not at all. Look, there's Davis-Bacon sets the established wages in an area regardless of the ethnicity makeup of the workforce. What it does prevent is an employer who can take a group of workers that perhaps doesn't have the ability to stand up for themselves and says, look, this is the wages that prevail in this local community. You're entitled to it. The joke of hearing folks like the ABC or others talk about this program is they use the Davis-Bacon projects that their contractors secure, and non-union contractors do get federally prevailing wage work. They hold those jobs out as the carrots to provide to their workers who often have to go back to private jobs at substandard wages and conditions. So they need to circulate that amongst their existing crews to keep them happy. They know the deal.
Now, what's interesting is, you could almost see who was writing the emails that we've got. The ABC people saying, well, it artificially inflates wages, it's inefficient, it's all of these other things. And then some of the workers who chimed in and said, look, I've worked in places where prevailing wage was supposed to be part of the deal, but it never trickled down to us. And one of the other things that I think the vice president talked about is enforcement, increasing the enforcement of ensuring that those wages actually do get to the people who they're supposed to.
Absolutely. And that's a large book of business for our locals, is helping those workers, not just our members, but any worker who's being abused with wage theft, misclassification, and other issues where contractors try and take advantage of them. And the new regulations and the update to Davis-Bacon here are going to allow us to help those workers a little easier than it is right now.
I want to bang through a couple of the other claims because I want to get your thoughts on them. I've given my thoughts. One of the arguments is that it reduces our ability to do more. We've inflated the cost of building contracts. In fact, one person told me, and I got to get your thoughts on this. He told me that if we did away with prevailing wage, it would cut building costs by 25%. that we could do 25% more building of schools and roads and bridges. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, just isn't so. There have been too many academic studies that have taken on this issue and looked at it in its totality and said that, and they've done this by looking at states, right? There's things called mini Davis-Bacon or state prevailing wage. And they looked to see if those costs adjusted for the fact that there's no prevailing wage in a state, prevailing wage in another state, adjust for cost of living. And guess what? Those states without prevailing wage don't get projects delivered any cheaper, don't get them delivered any more quickly, and certainly don't get them delivered any more effectively.
Yeah.
So these are talking points, but they can't be supported by academically reviewed studies.
But here, just the math. I mean, and look, I have basic, college math. I'm not completely devoid of being able to do basic numbers, but 25% seems like a fairly large number. And what I think we both know is in any building project, 25% is about the cost of labor. So if you're going to save 25% on a building project, does that mean labor is free? I mean, because I'm curious how you get to this 25. Now, I know what they mean. They mean we're going to cheat workers out of 25% of their wages, and they're going to work for 25% less. But this argument that this guy made was projects in general were going to be 25% cheaper.
Well, I think you're getting pretty close to the truth there, which is there is a certain group of contractors out there that would like to pay their workers nothing. But you're right. I mean, labor at most is 33% of the cost of a project. So a 25% savings on that would certainly not net you a 25% savings on the project. And again, there's just no credible studies out there to support that a cut in prevailing wage actually leads to lower costs for the project. It does lead to more money in the dollars of the pocket of the contractors that want to operate that way.
Well, no, what's interesting to me is I look at West Virginia, and I'm sure you've seen their governor, Republican Jim Justice, who not too long ago, after West Virginia passed the horrible right to work law and then went and repealed their prevailing wage laws, came out and said, we did both of those things. We were told this was going to be the panacea. The rivers were going to flow with gold and honey if we passed these things. And, well, it hasn't worked. It didn't bring in new jobs, didn't make the economy grow any better. All it really did was screw over the working people. Shouldn't that be the mantra going forward? That you look at West Virginia. They did everything the ABC and the Chamber of Commerce told them to do, and it didn't help working people. How about we try something else?
Yeah, you agreed. You couldn't find a better case study to show where eliminating prevailing wage did not raise area standards, did not help with the living conditions that the people in West Virginia work under. Let's look at the flip side of that, Rick. Michigan, right? Okay, it's early on, but if the ABC was to be believed, right, reinstating prevailing wage should have scared manufacturers, employers, and all sorts of folks away from a quote unquote prevailing wage state. Just the opposite is happening. Infusion of work, great demand for construction in Michigan. So couldn't be two more textbook examples of the benefits of prevailing wage.
Now, look, I'll probably never work on a prevailing wage job, and most people won't. And for me, the argument is it comes down to locality. I know that, and I've seen the studies, I'm sure as you have as well, that when you do away with prevailing wage laws, you end up losing your local craftspeople. The skilled craftspeople go on into other jobs that are paying, what they should be getting, what they earn. And you end up having transients come through, fly-by-night contractors come through and do shoddy work. And I've said 1,000 times, the school that they built down the road from my house where my kids sat in the classroom, I want that roof put on by somebody who lives in the neighborhood and whose kid is probably sitting next to mine, because I worry that this can be done in a shoddy way because those fly-by-night folks will be gone. I want local people doing local work who have skin in the game. That to me seems like a really good reason why we promote this.
Absolutely. You said the right word, community. And that's what this is. And that's what Davis-Bacon supports. And it's not just the local journeyman craft workers, right? It supports the pipeline of apprenticeship, right? Davis-Bacon recognized bona fide real apprenticeship programs. Standards are a key part of enforcement for Davis-Bacon. That's the kind of thing that ensures a continuity, right, of opportunities not just for the life of the project, but for that community going forward. You're going to have that pipeline of craft workers coming for the next generation. And that's what we're about.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're with Tim Driscoll, president of the International Union of Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers. We'll get links out on social media. You can take a look at the work that they do. I want to change this a little bit to get away from prevailing wage for a minute, because, look, I look at this as just one piece of what the Biden administration has done. And I think I've been saying this for a while. We're going to look back in the rearview mirror in about 10 years and go, this period was transformational and moving us in a new direction. And as I've been saying the last couple of days, anytime I see Larry Summers unhappy, that makes me happy, because it means maybe we're going in a way that isn't going to harm workers. But I look at this as a small part of moving us back towards reshoring manufacturing, investing in infrastructure, and more importantly, thinking about the working people who do those jobs and ensuring that the money that we spend, the tax dollars that we put out there, actually does trickle down to working people and helps communities. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Look, President Biden has said, and he has absolutely lived up to his word throughout this, that it's unions that built the middle class. His investments aren't investments that we have to wait years to see the benefits for. He's there making sure we're the ones growing our communities, whether it's the Infrastructure Act, the CHIPS and Science Act, the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, all of the incentives in there to ensure the construction work is performed at the highest standards. That benefits immediately to the workers, right? That is not something where we're waiting for those above to let us filter through what gets passed through their hands and eventually to us. This is a direct investment in our industry and in our people. Couldn't ask for more out of this administration.
You know, my friends on the right love to focus on the culture war stuff, on all of the divisive stuff, and I say, look, at the end of the day, as working people, we got to put off the red hats and the blue hats and get a hard hat so we can rebuild this country. And I believe that the way we reunite this country is to reunionize this country so that the wealth that we have does actually trickle down. The fantasy that we were sold when I was a kid growing up, that, you know, we give rich people all the money and it'll trickle down to us, hasn't played out. Maybe we go back to policies where we have the idea that if you do work hard and play by the rules, that you actually get ahead.
Yeah, look, agreed. That's what this country was founded on, right? As a principle that we're not about serfdom or waiting for our benefactors to bestow upon us anything. It's we get what we earn, right? We recognize that power concedes nothing without a demand, and unions are the vehicle for workers to express that in a responsible way. We know what it takes for our employers, and by our way, our signatory employers are our greatest partners. They're not just the folks who employ us, they're the folks who engage with us in training and providing benefits for our members. Those are the kind of partners we want. And that's what the Biden administration is empowering. It's saying to an employer, if you're responsible, if you're someone who wants to work with your workers to build a community, to build lives, then we want to help you succeed. And how that isn't something that everyone can embrace puzzles me.
I'm right there with you, Tim. I appreciate the time. I hope folks will check out your website, bacweb.org. The website. We'll get links out on social media. Again, next we'll have to get you back again to talk about your wonderful apprenticeship programs and how folks can maybe get these prevailing wage jobs to help build the middle class of the future. But Tim Driscoll, I appreciate the time.
Love to do that. Thanks, Rick. Good seeing you again.
You as well. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with Tim? Do you agree with the ABC folks? It's wasteful spending? Or should we be using tax dollars to build communities up, to help workers make a good living? That's where I'm going. Back after this. Stick around.